Hello and welcome to the Reflecting Light Show. I am your host, April Rodgers, and I am so glad that you are here today because we have a wonderful guest, a friend of mine, Jan Strickland. She is also an author. We're going to talk about her book a little bit later on, but welcome, Jan.
Thank you so much for having me, April.
Here. We go way back.
Yes, we do. Or our brothers go way
our brothers go way back. And I love that we were talking about them and just how fun and crazy they were. I remember my brother Jeremy was in school with your brother, but you were telling me that Jeremy had said that he was willing to be your big brother once Mert graduated.
So whenever I was in 8th grade, my brother was graduating from high school, and then I was about to enter high school, and of course, you know, the nerves of leaving junior high, going to high school, and Jeremy would say, "No, I've got you. I'll be like your big brother when you get to high school."
Charismatic.
And we had we just had this funny little hand clap that we always did. We'd pass each other because sometimes the junior high and high school students would pass each other, and he'd say "word" to me, like give me a slap on the head.
He never met a stranger.
He was so full of life and energy, and I love how like on the foundation y'all say his joy remembered, because that's what he was. He was joyful and always. That's what I remember him as.
And what a wonderful thing to be remembered for.
Yes,
for joy. I hope that people remember me like that.
For sure.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here because we have a lot to discuss. We have a lot to talk about. You are well known in our community because of Strickland Interiors. And so you've been able to remodel homes and also new construction sites, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But also I want to just talk about your journey and your life and the fact that you're married with 2 children now and the things that the Lord has brought you through. So welcome. We're going to just jump right in and dive right in.
Yeah, I'll kind of give you a short, try to do a short version of the bio, but I'm from Rayville, Louisiana, and went to OCS for a short while, and that's when I met Jeremy and Joya as well. But then graduated from Riverfield Academy, and then I went to University of Alabama, and a lot of people ask why there, but my grandparents are from Alabama. Okay. And they both graduated from Alabama, so that's what led me there.
And so I'm sure you got a lot of heat for that from all the LSU lovers
always, and still do.
But
it's all fun. But I met my husband Josh actually a month after after starting college.
Wow.
We met at a sorority fraternity event, and we didn't start dating till a year later, sophomore year. But he is from North Alabama. It's outside of Huntsville. It's Decatur. And which is funny because he kind of was similar upbringing as me. His mom was the children's minister of their Methodist church. Wow. And then, so he was always in church, and I was as well growing up. So we had that in common. But then we dated all through college, and we got married about a year after college, and it was a month before he started law school.
Goodness.
So
that was a whirlwind.
So our first year of marriage was his first year of law school. So of course, that was crazy. But when at Alabama, I graduated in interior design. So that's kind of what brought me to this. So then I worked at different interior design places in Montgomery, Alabama while he was in law school.
Yeah.
But in his last semester of law school, we decided that it was time, because we knew that he was finishing up. We had been married for 2.5 years at that point, and so we were wanting to start a family, and we knew that we were going to be coming back to North Louisiana because he was going to practice law with my dad.
Yeah.
That was always the plan. So we decided to go ahead and try, for our first child, and it took about 3 months to get pregnant, and I know that's not that long, but I thought it was just going to happen instantly. It took 3 months, and it was during the pregnancy that God kind of started revealing autism to me, which was very interesting because I didn't know much. I didn't know anybody with autism. I didn't know much about autism, but it was like on Facebook and different sites, it kept popping up, on ads, or it was just kind of popping up in different. And so here I was pregnant with our first child, and Josh is finishing up law school, and I'm sitting on the sofa reading about autism.
Wow.
And it was now, and looking back in hindsight, that was definitely God preparing me for what was to come with Jay's diagnosis. So he finishes law school, and then he was taking the Alabama bar whenever I was 37 weeks pregnant with Jay, which was, kind of crazy to all the studying and all of all of that. And then we had Jay in Montgomery, Alabama, and then we moved when he was 6 weeks old back to Rayville.
Okay.
And moved. It was a crazy time because Josh was then studying for the Louisiana bar. He had already passed the Alabama bar. Then he was studying for the Louisiana bar. We were moving with a 6 week old, and we moved into my parents' house.
Yeah.
All together. While they were finishing I was designing their home next door, and that was getting finished up. So we were all living in one roof. And Jay was a very hard baby. And I hate to say, it's hard to kind of say that, but I always knew, we knew from day one when he was born, the nurses actually came in and they said, "We have never had a baby like this." And I thought this one lady, it was actually the lactation nurse, she said, "In my 40 years of experience, I've never dealt with a baby like him." And I thought, what do you
what does that mean?
I mean, like we just kind of, we could not settle him at all that first night. And of course, first time parents, it was nerve wracking.
Sure.
We were kind of like, what is going on? So of course, the move, it was just always difficult with him. Like he was never settled as a baby. Things were just always, everything was always a little harder with him. Everything was challenging. And so throw that with the move, living with my parents, Josh studying for the bar.
And he's about to work with your dad.
And he's about to work with my dad, who is going to live next door. So there was a lot of changes and a lot of, new things. And so then I became mainly a stay-at-home mom, but I was doing some design work on the side whenever we moved back. But I knew I was going to be focusing being at home with Jay as a baby while Josh was, getting settled into the practice. And so I kind of started, getting into the design here in North Louisiana then. And when he was about 8 months old, I just really started having the feeling that he had autism. There were just certain things that he wasn't. As a new parent, I was reading all of, the Google things on this development needs to happen, at this time, and this needs to happen at this time. And he would meet the majority of those things. And so as a mom, you don't want to ever think something's wrong with your child.
Sure.
Like I tried to fight that at Josh and I both did. We were like, no, we would both kind of be like, it's strange that he's doing that, but it's nothing, but we would just brush it off. I'd say, it's not, or he'll catch up, or he'll do, I kept telling myself that. And one day it was like he wouldn't clap. And it was just a strange, it was on the developmental chart. I think it said 8-10 months, they should be clapping. And I just couldn't get him to clap. I would try everything. And I just remember breaking down one day to my mother-in-law and I said, he's just not clapping. Because he would kind of mumble, mama, or, so there were certain things that he would follow on the chart. And then there were certain things he wouldn't. And I just remember telling my mother-in-law, I said, I think he has autism. And she was like, why do you think that? I said, he's just not clapping. And she was like, well, that's kind of a strange, thing to think. But as a mother, I just had this instinct. Well, instinct. I kept thinking, if we do this, maybe he'll do that. And I started looking around at my other friends with children his age, and they were like light years ahead of him on speech development and, just a lot of other communication type things. But then I kept making excuses, and I said, maybe because he's at home with me, because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I would start as, I was like, I don't want to get, ahead of myself here. Right. I don't want to, jump the gun.
And that comparison is so hard as a new mom as well. I remember being in those shoes and, having a group of friends, and we all had babies around the same time. And you do kind of get caught up in that, even though you don't want to.
Yes. And that was part of the reason why I was telling myself, don't take it too, I was just trying, this voice in my head was saying, you're just going overboard. So, I put him in a day school, and I thought, maybe this is going to be our answer. Maybe this, if he's around other peers, he's going to start talking, he's going to start all this. Well, that was not. But it was actually the beginning of our whole diagnosis and journey by doing that, because I was friends with the owner at the time, and she, the worst fear, that I knew, I knew something was wrong, but then to have somebody that is a professional in child, development, say, we need to get him tested. It was kind of like my biggest fear came, confirmed, really, there is something not, right here. So it all started with, and he was 2.5 at that point, and so it all started with speech. They put us with a speech therapist, and it started there. Then the speech therapist put us with an occupational therapist. And of course, I kept saying, this is our answer. This is all we need. We just need him to be in speech. We just need him to be in occupational therapy. And then everything's getting, I thought this is our answer to everything. And of course it wasn't. This was really just kind of the beginning. And at this time, I was pregnant with Evie, and I had Evie when he was around 2.5. It all kind of happened at the same time. He was starting therapy, and then I had a newborn, which, was a lot going on, because I'm thinking something's not all the way right here, and we need to, get him his help. Right. But here I have a newborn that I've got to devote my time to. And it became very clear through Evie the differences of Jay. She was like the easiest, newborn, which she could have been an exception to the rule, but she was just, everything was coming easy to her. She was doing all the things developmentally. She was actually above, on the chart. She was speaking at 8 months old. And so then I started, when she started to surpass my 2.5-year-old, it really started to hit me, okay, something is wrong here with Jay. That was really what. And
was Josh picking up on it too?
He was. We were both like, wow, Evie is, and I think we both still, you still don't want to, as a parent, you still don't want to accept it. You still don't want to believe something's wrong, but we were like, well, maybe she's just an exception, maybe she's just, we were just kind of still making those excuses. But then, he got through the day school, and then and he still was not. He was speaking a little better through speech, like a little bit, but it wasn't right. So then we put him in a regular pre-K 3, and it wasn't until his pre-K 3 teacher said the words. Yeah. She was the first person to say, because she had been a teacher for many years, knew, and she said, I'm pretty sure Jay has autism. And that was, she spoke something that Josh and I already knew. But again, we still even wanted to fight it then.
Right.
And we met with we tried everything. We tried to get him in all of these different, high places to get tested and all. And they kept saying, it's going to be 6 months. It's going to be like everywhere that I called, they said, it's going to take 6 months to get him in. It's going to take, and I was kind of like, we don't have 6 months, because God had brought this girl to me through Jay's class. Actually, her brother was diagnosed with autism, and she was and she ended up being Jay's like first friend. And so we started talking, and she even noticed it kind of from day one, and she would start talking to me about it before the teacher ever even mentioned it. And then she said yes. And so she kind of was there to get, God for sure placed her in my life. And we're still in each other's lives and get to talk about it all the time. And her son is a year older than Jay and at the same school and everything. But she really encouraged me to get that diagnosis and to do ABA therapy. That was like what her main, she was like, this was everything for him, for my son. Right. It can be everything for Jay as well.
And so right then it was that light coming into
yes. For her, she was, because I saw her son speak and do all these amazing things that I wished and prayed for Jay. And I thought, well, she was the one that kind of made me feel like the autism diagnosis isn't bad. To have another mom with a child with that diagnosis and to see his successes, she was the shining light, to be that person. That's for me. Beautiful. So I then really started the urgency of getting that diagnosis after speaking with her, and I found a local person who could do the testing and got us right in like within a week. Wow. And of course she did, and I was God's testing for everything. It was kind of a 3 month, long, but it was better than waiting 6 months and waiting more months. Right. And so it was a thorough testing, and she did give us that autism diagnosis. And I remember walking in that parking lot and just breaking down, because I thought, here we are, we've got a lifelong diagnosis. Sure. This is not something that's going to be a fix. Yeah. This is,
you can't have surgery if it
he can't, there's nothing that can fix this. And so even though, my friend had given me all this hope through her son and everything, it still it's hard to hear a lifelong diagnosis for your child. Yeah. That's a very scary. And then also I had, Evie was, at this point, she was 2, I think, because he was he was 4 when he received the diagnosis. Well, the way that I am, I got the diagnosis, I cried, kind of screamed out to God. I was angry. Yeah. I didn't want that for him. Even though all these things had been years kind of making, and back to, he was not speaking at this point. He was not speaking a single sentence at 4, and I wanted so bad for him to talk. That was my prayer to God every single day, probably from the time he was 2.5, because I saw other, 2.5-year-olds just speaking, talking to their parents. I wanted that for him. I wanted to be able to talk to my son. Yeah. And that was something I really, really wanted. So I've been praying for that for 2 years, and I had been trying everything that I could up until this point. So then I thought, this is it. The ABA therapy. We needed the autism diagnosis to get him into the ABA therapy. And So I found a clinic locally, called, got him in like the next week.
Wow.
And it was like almost within a week or so of him going, he started to speak. And it was just like incredible. I mean, every word that he said is, it's still today. I mean, he's 7 years old. It was a miracle. And now, and his speech to this day just keeps improving. He says bigger words, and you're like, wow. But I think back to, the times that I just prayed to God. I mean, it was really probably 2.5 years worth of praying and waiting for an answer, for the speech to happen.
And what a good God that he does. He hears our prayers.
Yes.
Whenever he says that we can call upon him and that he will answer us, and he is so mighty to do so.
Yes.
We're going to take a short break, Jan, and then when we come back, we're going to finish this amazing story. We would like to thank today's sponsor of the Reflecting Light Show, Strickland Interiors. Strickland Interiors is one of Northeast Louisiana's premier interior decorating and home design companies. Jan Strickland specializes in decorating remodels as well as new construction, and she has been the lead designer for the Monroe, Louisiana St. Jude Dream Homes for the past 5 years. Visit Strickland Interiors on Facebook and Instagram today. Hello and welcome back to the Reflecting Light Show. I am April Rodgers and I'm here with Jan Strickland. We were talking about how you had been praying over and over again for the Lord to answer your prayer for your son, just to speak to you. And there it was.
And there it was.
You get your miracle and he utters these words.
And it's just like what I say, biblical miracles. I compare this to Moses parting the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Because even though it's not something, like that, it was to me.
Sure.
It was everything to me.
Yes.
I so desperately wanted my son to speak. And to try everything for so long. And then for him to start speaking, it was kind of like the floodgates, were open.
Right,
like he started, and it just continued. And like I said, it's continuing now. Even at 7, he's speaking more words. And
you were saying that he's able to carry on.
He is able now to carry on a full conversation. I mean, and I always say this: he can speak in paragraphs.
Wow,
it is amazing. We still, there's still a few words here or there, letters that he struggles with, but it's so cute because Evie, and I say this too, Evie was a full-on blessing from God. And she has a whole other story that we don't have time for today, but she is there, seriously, the biggest encouragement. When he struggles with a word, she helps him with it. She's 2.5 years younger, but like she knows he's struggling, and she'll say, "Mama, he's trying to say this." Like she really, she kind of knows. Yeah, she knows how. So they always say God put the two of them together for a reason, because she helps him, and they are just like the perfect pair together. But when we received the diagnosis, something else really incredible happened. So our area did not have any type of resources for those with autism. And I was desperately, this was 3 years ago, I was looking for that as a newly, as a parent of a newly diagnosed child. I wanted that community to meet other parents and to know, and for him to even know other children with his diagnosis. And at that exact same time, I had contacted a friend of mine that I knew from high school, who I knew her son was diagnosed. And I said, "Is there anything here?" And she said, "Actually, we are starting the Autism Society of North Louisiana. Would you and Josh want to be the board members?" And she said that like, I was like, yes. We had just received the diagnosis within a week. And she asked, and with Josh being an attorney, they needed an attorney on the board. So we jumped right in,
perfect.
and they asked me to be the government relations chair, and I was kind of like, what? I don't know. I know. That's what I said. I was like, I'm an interior designer. I'm not, I've never done that before. And we just met and we started talking about how there was a need for a bill to pass where it would have autism on a driver's license so that a police officer or, learner's permit, or even an identification card, so that a, police officer or somebody in the law enforcement, if they were to see that and then they were to see the child or, the teenager stimming, they would not suspect anything odd. They would know that was an autism type thing.
Right.
So,
which is so important, because if I can only imagine if Jay was driving and then he got pulled over and then the officer did not know, and that would be traumatic for him.
And something set him off, like a light or a noise,
Right.
And they didn't know what was happening.
Yes.
It would be very traumatic. So for the safety of really everybody, it was an amazing, bills. And we got Representative Francis Thompson jumped right on board and backed the bill. And I've known him my entire life.
Yeah.
And we got to, this was 2020, right during the pandemic. We're all quarantined. We were actually down at the beach, and we get a call that it was about to go before the House in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And so Josh and I took off. We left the beach and we went down to Baton Rouge, and they passed the bill. Like we both got to stand up and speak, and they passed the bill. And then now, that was in 2020. That was a couple years ago. Now, the president of the Autism Society at that time, her son is now of the age to get a learner's permit, and she actually shared on social media the picture of the driver's license and everything with the autism written on there. And I just was in tears. I was like, this is, because
that's
back
the fruit
then,
of your labor.
Yes, and
that's
back then when we started this, that was, it all started 3 years ago when Jay was first diagnosed, and he was 4.5.
Yeah.
In my mind, all I could think was, I just want him to speak, and I just want him to be in a regular classroom, and I just want, this form. I wasn't even thinking about the day that he would be driving. But then to see her son, and then for Jay to be 7, and here we are, 8, 9 years out, I thought, this, wow.
And I'm telling you, it goes by so much faster than you think it does, because mine is now in finishing driver's ed, and it's like, no, time to slow down.
Yes.
Yeah. But what a beautiful story of how the Lord allowed you to be a blessing, and now you guys have created this community, and you're holding the hands of other people. So you are that person that woman was to you in that minute that you needed that light to come into the darkness, because I'm sure that you were grieving. You were, having that diagnosis. You have to grieve.
And you start thinking, what are all the things that, Jay's not going to be able to do now?
Yeah.
What is his future not going to have because he has autism? But I'm starting to learn that that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
That he can do everything that anybody else does. It's just, it may be on his timeline, or maybe a little, it may look different than others, but I know, especially through God showing this miracle of him even speaking, that anything is going to be possible for his life.
That's beautifully said. Oh my goodness. But it brings tears to my eyes a little bit, because you do think about just the faithfulness of a mother's prayers, and you and Josh just pouring into this, and what you've been able to succeed in, and the fact that you see his speech as a miracle. And I know that you don't take it for granted anytime that you get to have a conversation
and
with your son. And
And I look at Evie, and everything comes so natural to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at him, and I think he has had to spend hours and years and days in therapy to do this one thing that she just does so naturally. Yeah. And if it wasn't for his struggles, I think I would just take everything for granted. I don't take anything that either one of them do for granted, because even though it's so natural for Evie, it's a miracle for it is, but it's really, we're all kind of walking miracles if you look at it that way.
That's right. That's great perspective.
It really is. Everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that your story is going to provide somebody who may be out there in this same position that you were, 5 years ago, whenever you were just like, is this going to be my new reality or is it not? I think you're going to be able to provide that hope and that light for them. So thank you so much for sharing your story. It was beautiful.
Thank you for having me.
Of what the Lord has been faithful to do and what he will keep doing. But before I let you go, we need to talk about your book. Mm-hmm. So this is your interior coffee table book.
Yes,
and
yes.
I love it. It's so
it's
beautiful.
My portfolio in there. And it's local, homes that I've done for the past 4 to 5 years, and all the St. G Dream homes. I'm working on my 6th one now. And
wow, that's a testament to the Lord's faithfulness too.
So I love doing it.
Yeah. And it's no small feat to have a published book.
No, it was a lot of work, weeks, hours of the day. That's a lot. Talking to the editor,
and trying to be a wife and a mother, and working mom. It's a lot. Yeah. So I applaud you for your efforts to be able to do that. Now, before we say goodbye, I need to ask you, what is one thing, Jan, that is lightening your load these days?
So I knew you were going to ask this because I listen to all of your other podcasts. I would say self-care.
Okay.
And in the form of, I love listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
Yours is definitely at the top. But then also just finding time to work out and to, focus on nutrition and different things. As a mother, a busy mom, businesswoman, if you don't take time for yourself, then things are going to go crashing down. So I really, it really lightens my load to give myself the time that I need.
That's really good.
And
that's a great answer, because you're right. I mean, before we know it, our hours in the day are accounted for, and if we did not intentionally put those hours aside,
and that's something that I had to learn the hard way. Being a mom of 2 kids and busy, you have to make yourself a priority. Yeah, or you can't help your children, or anybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you have been here today. You're definitely a light in my life, and I know that you're a light in this whole entire community that we have, but also the autism community. And so thank you for your efforts, for you and Josh and what you guys are doing over there. I know that it's going to reach 1,000 generations.
Thank you so much, April.
Thank you for tuning in to the Reflecting Light Show. We pray you got some hope and some light out of today's episode. And if you did, please subscribe to the show and also share with a friend who may need the light of Jesus Christ in his or her life. If you haven't gotten your copy of Made to Shine, you can do so by going to aprilrodgers.com. Go out and have a great week and be the light.